idea of slow food is like the most elemental thing of eating. It's all about appreciating the traditional ways in which we used to eat and feed ourselves. So slow food is a movement that's trying to bring back traditions or recognize existing traditions and celebrate local farming, people who prepare food, enjoying food at the table, taking time to eat, and just generally eating the way our grandparents did.
Both came from very different areas before we got into farming, but we'd both been interested for several years living in Portland, had toyed with the idea off and on if we wanted to quit our careers and start farming, but never really had the gumption. And then upon meeting each other and starting to date, we catalyzed that and actually made that happen and inspired each other to make the plunge.
My name is Annie Jesperson, and our farm is Deep Harvest Farm in Langley, Washington on Whidbey.
And I'm Nathaniel Talbot, and I'm with her too. Whidbey being an older demographic, I think is really excited to have young farmers here, and I think as a young farmer coming here, that was really obvious, and I think it's obvious to any young person being here. You feel really appreciated and people want you to stay, and it makes it a lot easier to stay and try to find the means to make it work.
If we were to return to Portland, we would be a dime a dozen, but here on Whidbey, there's still some novel element that we're providing to the community, and that feels important to us. We don't want to just recreate the wheel somewhere. We want to be able to add value to a community, and it feels like on Whidbey there's that opportunity.
Deep Harvest Farm was at first just a small incubator project off in addition to our training at Greenbank. So in addition to the full-time training program, we proposed to the administrators at the program if we could lease just a quarter acre or so of land and try our own experimental business, which took the form of a fall-winter CSA, Community Supported Agriculture Program. They thought it was a cool idea. No students had proposed that as an option, and since then it's built and grown into our full-time jobs 2 years later.
I think there's a real cooperative element to all of the folks who are farming on Whidbey. It's a small community.
Yeah, I was going to say the size is probably one of the biggest factors. If you go to Portland Farmers Market, there's farmers from Eugene, down the Willamette Valley all the way out to the Coast Range that drive up to a couple hours to that market. And here it's mostly farmers within 5 miles, maybe 10.
I think we're both concerned about the direction our industrialized food system is going, which is why we're farming, and feel passionate about the type of work, but also the ethics behind the work, because we don't like the way that the system is heading, and we want to be able to provide our community with healthy, real food. Our concern for the broader system is then seen in our response by deciding to become farmers. Slow food is just a mission to appreciate food at its essence, and also the community that can happen around food, and just trying to revitalize that camaraderie that we all used to enjoy around the dinner table, and trying to re-inspire that once again.
For some people it might mean just like cooking a few greens every week as opposed to throwing in some TV dinners, while other people it might mean trying to grow all of your own food and supporting your family self-sufficiently. And so everyone's kind of at a different place, but making a step in that direction I think is important for everyone. And Farmers Market, in addition to CSA pickup, is an incredibly affirming experience in that the community, you feel very appreciated as a farmer behind that booth doing that for 4 hours. It's really nice. It kind of energizes us every week and wants us to get back at it Monday morning.
And for that matter, selling to restaurants. I mean, whenever we pack up a box to bring to the Braeburn or Mukilteo Coffee or Gordon's, I mean, we get like a cheerleader on the other end, when we bring in a box of produce. Customers definitely ooh and ah, and the staff at those places that receive our local food really encourage us constantly and make us want to do it more and more for them. So that kind of fuels our fire.
always loved to cook. My parents cooked when we were kids. I grew up in California, and we still would drive out 25, 30 miles and go to the little farms out in the country to get our food. So, I mean, I was pretty much raised this way, which is great. And I can do it. I can create a business and utilize the fresh farms on the island. Hi, I'm Sheila Strysak, and I am the chef at Tres Gringos Tamales. I am located at Bayview Corner. About 6 or 7 years ago, I decided to change careers, so became a chef and went to Cordon Bleu in Los Angeles and was able to get some amazing jobs with some amazing chefs and started working in the restaurant world. And I decided to start my own company, and I'm from California. I love good Mexican food. Most of our food is local, actually right across the street, Ebb Tide Farms. I also use Deep Harvest Farms. I just stopped in today. I use a lot of local meats from Three Sisters. These are hard-working people. They put their heart and soul into it, and they're not making a lot of money. So the more we can give back to our community, the better. Try to get as much as I can locally. I mean, we have amazing farms here on the island, and nothing better than fresh food straight out of the ground and into a taco. I know a lot of restaurants on the south end of the island use the local farmers, and keeps the economy going for, the small farmers here. It keeps the money in the community, which we need to do, and keeps it out of the corporate hands. There are a lot of health conscious people here and very aware of where the food's coming from, if it's coming from South America or Mexico or Whidbey Island. I think food has changed so much in the last 20 years. I think people started relying on fast food because of work and because they didn't have time, or both parents need to work. And it's not like in the 50s where a mom would stay home and cook dinner all the time. And now it's almost to the point where to survive, you have to have 2 incomes in your house. Slow food can be fast food. I do pretty much fast food, but I spend days cooking it and prepping it and using local ingredients. You can come and have your order as quick as you do at McDonald's, but the food is cared for a little bit more. It's a different food world, and I think people are becoming more conscious and aware of what's going into our food and into our body. I think all I can do is provide the best quality food I can possibly give to the public. I mean, I serve the masses, and for my own conscience, I definitely want to contribute healthful, good quality food to people. I'm very conscious and aware of what I put on a plate, and I want to make sure it tastes good and that people are spending money on something of quality and not quantity. I enjoy every meal that I eat. I try to enjoy it. I try to take the time, even if I'm working or stressing out or don't have a lot of time, I still am going to enjoy what I put into my body because it's so important health-wise. And I love food. I wouldn't do it if I didn't love it,
Slow food is not something exotic. I've never done anything but slow food. I didn't realize that what I was doing was slow food before I found out about slow food. Slow food is about buying produce and cutting it up and cooking it and eating it and enjoying it with your kids. It's about sitting down at the table and enjoying dinner and having a bottle of wine and taking the time to talk with your friends and your family. Slow food's not some exotic thing. It's about the fact that for many people that is exotic, and that's wrong. People should spend the time to cook and to eat and to appreciate their lives. Being part of slow food hasn't changed the way I feel about food. Instead, it's changed the way I try to share that with other people. My name's Vincent Natras, and I have a rooster. My name's Vincent Natras, and I'm the chef, and I live here in Bayview, and I'm also the president of Slow Food Whidbey Island. Slow food is an easier concept to get than most people think. Slow Food Whidbey Island started in 2010. I had just come back from Napa, and there was already a group here that was forming and trying to coalesce around forming a chapter on the island. Then this last year, 2013, our group actually became a 501c3 nonprofit in Washington State. So we're our own separate corporation and still part of Slow Food USA. The focus for Slow Food Whidbey Island has really been on the connection between the farm and the chef, and also on educational discussions and talks that Slow Food Whidbey Island has put on. Food in America has become a product of commodity farming. So obviously, if someone has a farm with 100,000 turkeys on it, the scale of that and the breeds that are being raised, those birds are going to be a lot cheaper than they are if you're raising heritage turkeys and feeding them. It is more expensive to buy local produce. It's more expensive to not buy shoes that are made in China. All of those things are more expensive, and they should be, and they are. There's no question about it. It is not true, however, to say that the corollary to that is that slow food is elitist, because I don't think it is. And if you look at the people that, for example, I got the original stock from these turkeys from, or the people that I buy feed from for these turkeys, they're local people that have been here a long time, and they're certainly not hoity-toity people or fancy people. They're farmers. So I think that, yes, local food is more expensive, but it's something that we need to appreciate the fact that it's important, and we need to spend the extra money on it. You know, Taste of Whidbey should just be fun, for one. So first of all, I think that it's wonderful that people can come, and it's a self-selecting crowd to a certain extent. It's people who like food, and it's people who like wine. So the education is simply in terms maybe of putting a face to a name. Beyond that, maybe there's not as much education to Taste of Whidbey. From my selfish perspective as a chef, I want to have an event where I could be with other chefs. So I did a lot of those when I was living in Napa, and I wanted to create an event on Whidbey Island that would do that same thing. So that was really the goal of the event to begin with. But it's also a showcase, hopefully, of a burgeoning food scene on Whidbey Island. When I grew up here in the 80s, there was no food scene. But it's really started to coalesce. So now we have farms that are producing tons of stuff. We've got dairies making really good cheese. We've got wineries making really good wine, some of which the grapes are grown on Whidbey Island. That's crazy. It's really a time when we're starting to see this coalescing of all of these things together into what you could really call a food scene on Whidbey Island. So that's kind of exciting. But educational, I don't know, maybe just go and have fun.
I like fresh vegetables. I like to cook. If you start with good food, you have a good chance of having a really nice meal when you've completed it. What I do is I go to the garden, I pull my vegetables out of the garden, I display them on my counter, I take a photograph, and I share it with my friends all over the world and said, I just harvested these from our garden. And it says I'm going to eat some squash blossoms that are literally only a half hour old with Vicki Brown's goat cheese. Because we need to support our community, whether it be food, our money needs to stay on this island to keep the things that we enjoy doing here instead of going abroad and spending it somewhere else. And I enjoy good food. So this is a fun place to come. Today is a great place to be.
I first was introduced to slow food at a conference in Italy, at the International Slow Food Conference. I was sent as a delegate from Whidbey Island, and I just fell in love with the concept of slow food. I want people to eat local. I want people to enjoy their meal. Food is such a cultural thing, and it's exciting to be a part of that culture. So I'm glad we're doing it here on Whidbey Island, and I'm going to try to be more involved because I think it's a great organization, Slow Food.
We've felt since we moved to Whidbey that it's important to support the local area, and as much as possible we do try to buy locally, and we found that since we moved here we don't go to the mainland very often at all. We just don't like to leave our island.
Yeah, I think agriculture is really a big part of our tradition here, and the more we can support that, the better, and the more new people come on board with new products, I think the better off we'll all be.
I'm surprised by people who have kids that the kids don't know where their food comes from. I've really been impressed by, for example, the work that Carrie over at Good Cheer has done with the farms and the gardens that are being grown for the kids at school. You'd be amazed at what kids will eat if they take it out of the ground and they grew it themselves. It's a revolution. We have an obligation to know where our food comes from. You know, eating is a political act. Eating is an act of community. And slow food's about community. So I would encourage people just to know where their food comes from and ask those questions. The one thing about Slow Food Whidbey Island is Slow Food Whidbey Island is really about you. If you're interested in joining Slow Food Whidbey Island, all of the events we do and everything that we're about is based on what our members want. So Taste of Whidbey was sort of my dream. And other things that we've done, like the lectures that we've done, have been brought up by other members. So we'd certainly love to have anyone who's interested join Slow Food Whidbey Island and guide us wherever their palate leads.